Perfect. Thank you. Please take it away.
Okay, awesome. And everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Sorry that took me a minute. Sometimes I'm not always the most techie because I like to work outside, but we make it work. So thank you all for your patience. But yeah, we're just going to run really quick through kind of what we do at the Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserves and, why we're so excited about what we do and what you all can do to help. So we'll go through the Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserves and our team and all the cool stuff that we get to do as marine biologists and environmental scientists. So I work for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So like the name sounds, that's our state agency in Florida that's in charge of protecting our air, water, and land. So in DEP, we have state parks. So if any of you have been to any of our state parks, that's through DEP. We also do environmental permitting, which those guys at that permitting office are doing their best to make sure that we're developing Florida sustainably and making sure that none of our animals and resources are being harmed by development and construction. But I work in the Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. So what I do all has to do with our beaches and our estuaries and our springs, all of our cool water resources that we have throughout the state. And specifically, the program that I work in is the Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserves. So if you look on the map that's here on the right of the screen, all of those yellow areas are areas that me and my team manage. So that's over 97,000 acres of water that my team manages, all the way from Volusia County, which is a ways north of you guys, all the way south into Palm Beach County and Jupiter area. So we manage over 150 islands that are in this water. We do lots of research, stewardship, and outreach. So that means we monitor seagrass beds, we monitor oyster reefs, so we get to swim around in the lagoon. We monitor bird nesting, horseshoe crab populations, diamondback terrapins, which is a special type of turtle, and we'll get into all that cool stuff as we continue through this presentation. So the Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserves in the Indian River Lagoon, that's the body of water that it's my job to help protect. It's a brackish water estuary. So it's where salt water and fresh water mix together. So we have water from the ocean coming in through our inlets, and we have water from our rivers that is also entering the Indian River Lagoon. So that means we have a really big mix of diverse animals, plants, and organisms. So in the Indian River Lagoon, we have alligators, we have crocodiles, and we have sharks. We also have sea turtles, we have freshwater turtles, and we have special turtles called diamondback terrapins that live in the lagoon. So it's kind of where all different types of animals come and meet. We have mammals like manatees. We have tons of dolphins in the Indian River Lagoon. We have dolphins that spend their whole life in the Indian River Lagoon. They never leave to go into the ocean because they love the Indian River Lagoon so much. And we have over 4,000 different species of plants and animals in the lagoon. So it's one of the most biodiverse estuaries in North America. So that means biodiverse just means there's lots of different organisms in there, thousands of different species. So estuaries all over the world are super important. The Indian River Lagoon is an estuary. And estuaries are sort of just areas where land meets the sea. So in Florida, that's where salt water comes in through our inlets and fresh water comes in through our rivers and meets together. It's where a lot of people go boating. Some people call it the intercoastal waterway. That's also part of the Indian River Lagoon. And our estuaries are really important nursery habitat. So like you can see in these pictures, we have horseshoe crabs mating, we have little baby birds, we have lots of little fish. So estuaries all over the world, and specifically the Indian River Lagoon, are habitat where creatures can come to raise their young. That's what estuaries in the Indian River Lagoon is all about, because before these animals either go off into the ocean or before these birds fly off to another area, they like to use the estuaries in the Indian River Lagoon to raise their young. Estuaries also act as a filter to protect our ocean water. So all of us live obviously on land. None of us live out in the ocean. So all of the water that we have that's runoff from our yards and our streets, our water that we use at our houses, all of that water eventually makes its way into the ocean, just like they said in Finding Nemo. So before that water makes its way into the ocean, it makes its way into the estuary or the Indian River Lagoon first. So that's a really important filter habitat where the different plants and animals in the lagoon help to pull out some of that nutrients or pollution that we're putting into the water before it gets to the ocean. So our team, we're a team of 5 people to manage all those 97,000 acres. And that includes our regional manager, Irene. She works with me at my office. Our Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserve manager, Matthew. and then my other two coworkers, Caitlin and Kirk. And we all work on different projects and we all have different levels of education. So if you're thinking of getting into environmental science and marine science, our boss lady, Irene, she has her master's in marine science. And then the rest of us have our bachelor's degrees with lots of years of experience out in the field. And I am Emily, again, obviously part of this team. I'm from Florida, I'm from Palm Beach County. And I got my bachelor's of science in environmental science from Broward College. So I stayed within the state and went to state colleges and community colleges to get my degree because college is really expensive. And, you know, we can't all afford to go off to colleges in other states or to pay for universities. So I was able to get my bachelor's in environmental science from one of the local community college, which gave me lots of experience in little study abroad trips that I could do. I actually got to go to Africa. That's the photo on the bottom left. I also got to go to Nicaragua to help with field studies there. I did a tropical ecology class in Costa Rica. So I got really lucky through these local Florida programs to be able to travel a little bit around the world with my professors and learn how to do conservation in different sort of wetland areas. And then Africa obviously was kind of a safari adventure. So that was really cool to see how those people manage those animals there. But anyways, the Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserve, we work on diverse projects to protect this really important estuary, the Indian River Lagoon. But we're not the only ones who need to work to protect the Indian River Lagoon. Everyone plays an important role in protecting the lagoon and our planet as a whole. So we'll run through a couple of the programs that we work on, and you guys can see if any of these spark your interest. So throughout the year, we do bird monitoring. So specifically, we monitor wading birds. So that includes this pink bird down here on the lower right, roseate spoonbill, and that white bird that looks like he's bald, that's a wood stork. We also monitor ibises. Pretty much every wading bird you can think of that hangs up by the water, we monitor that in the Indian River Lagoon. We also monitor smaller ground nesting birds, like this least tern in the bottom left corner, and the American oyster catcher is this bird with the really long orange bill. And we actually get to band those American oyster catchers. So we hop on the island with nets and we have to catch the birds. And then they get kind of little anklets that are special colors and have a special letter and number combination, so that when other scientists see those birds in different areas of the state or different areas of the world, they can send us an email and let us know your bird that was born in the Indian River Lagoon ended up all the way in Costa Rica, which is one of the emails that we got a few years ago. We also do bird habitat enhancement. So for those ground nesting birds, they like to nest on beaches, but people like to hang out on beaches too. And those two things don't go very well together. So we create special habitat for these guys on designated islands that we don't let people on. And then these birds can come in and use that habitat for nesting, because that's one of the things that makes those birds critically threatened, is that they don't have nesting habitat. So we provide that for them in the Indian River Lagoon. We're also doing a plastics and birds study. So essentially we're trying to figure out how much plastic are birds in the Indian River Lagoon ingesting, if any. So a study like this hasn't been done before in the Indian River Lagoon, and we have no idea if birds in the Indian River Lagoon are ingesting plastics or not. So we're trying to find that out. We also study diamondback terrapin turtles. So these turtles are very specific to estuaries. They don't live out in the ocean and they don't live in freshwater. They only live in estuaries where that saltwater and that freshwater mix. So we tag these guys with pit tags, like same kind of tags that you put in your pets, those same microchips. We use them on these turtles to try to figure out how many of them we have in the Indian River Lagoon, because they're very sneaky and we don't know how many we have. We also tag horseshoe crabs, sort of for that same reason. They're very sneaky. They stay underwater for most of their time unless they're nesting. And we really don't know how many we have in the Indian River Lagoon. So we catch those guys and tag them as well. And we're also tagging them with special tags that give off these acoustic pings, or these sounds that we can't hear as people, but it gives off these sounds and they're received by these receivers, which pick up that noise and tell us where these guys are crawling along the bottom in the Indian River Lagoon. And this is another study that no one else has done before. We also do seagrass monitoring. So this is a cool part of my job. It's also a really difficult part of my job because we have to hold our breath and swim around and count the seagrass. So it's really cool because I love to snorkel. Sometimes it's a little scary because the water isn't super clear a lot of the times, like you can see in this picture. So one time I almost bumped straight into a manatee, and that scared me so badly, but I came up and laughed about it. And we have a lot of fun doing our seagrass monitoring. We do it in the winter when it's really cold, and we do it in the summer when it's really hot. So it's always an adventure for us. We also monitor oyster reef habitat. So this is monitoring natural reefs, like in the bottom left photo, and then also doing projects to help our oyster reefs out and put out some materials to see if we can help our oyster reefs continue to grow. Because right now in the Indian River Lagoon, they're not doing that well. So we're doing everything we can to help our oyster reef habitat. We also review permits. So there's lots of people who live along the Indian River Lagoon, and every time that they want to put in a dock or a marina or a restaurant, we look at those permits and try to determine if it's going to have negative impacts on the lagoon, and we let those permitting people know, hey, this isn't a good idea or this is a good idea. We also manage, like we said, over 150 islands in the lagoon. So we manage some for people. We let people camp on these islands. So you guys, if you have a kayak or a boat, you guys can go out to these islands and have a camping weekend if you want. Everybody's welcome. Give me a call if you have any questions. So we have some campsite islands that you and your family and friends can go to, but we also have islands that are specifically for the birds or for the terrapins and for special animals that use it for nesting. So we manage both of those types of islands. We also have a Leave No Trace program. So this is part of our island management program, because when people go out and use our islands, sometimes they leave behind a lot of trash. Sometimes they even leave behind human waste. And what we're trying to do is encourage people to learn how to go out to our islands and use them without littering, without leaving human waste, sort of the right way to recreate so that you're not hurting the islands and you're also able to enjoy it. Because that's a skill that people need to learn. It's primitive camping out there, so there's no restrooms. We really just have campsites and fire rings. So the Leave No Trace program is trying to teach people how to use the islands and have the most fun while also keeping the islands nice and clean and pristine for the next people who go. Part of that is our Bark Ranger program. So we have a bunch of dogs that are our Bark Rangers, and you can sign your dog up to be a Bark Ranger, and they follow the principles of Bark. So it's bag your pet's waste, always be on a leash, respect wildlife, and know where you can go. Because we have a problem with dogs on our islands who sometimes end up harming birds and destroying some of our bird nesting habitat because they're off leash. Or if people aren't bagging their pets' wastes, that's really bad for our water quality. So we have our Bark Ranger program as well. So you can sign your pets up for that if they want to volunteer too. We have our lagoon-friendly landscaping project. This is my main project right now. And it's just to sort of highlight what we do on land can help or hurt the Indian River Lagoon. So if we're doing Florida native landscaping and making habitat for bees and butterflies on land, that's also going to help our manatees and dolphins in the lagoon, because that's going to improve the quality of water that runs off of our lawns into the lagoon. So if we have healthy native plants on our lawns and we don't use chemicals, that's good for the lagoon. And one of the big parts of our jobs is just having and working with interns and students. So if you guys are in middle school and high school, we often judge science fairs in the region. We're happy to help with science fair projects. If you guys do decide to go to college and want to look into marine conservation, we do summer internships. We also love to have students come out with us on our boats to learn more about what we do and help us with projects. We also advise and help with college and high school research projects. So we love to get students involved because you guys are the next generation who's going to do this work after us. And to get our job done for all of that 97,000 acres and all those different plants and animals, we have to work with a lot of different people. So we work with regional teams, we go to conferences. A lot of my job is talking. So we have a lot of fun out in the lagoon catching animals and snorkeling, but a lot of it is also emailing, talking, getting in touch with people to try to do our job the best that we can, to make sure that we're protecting the lagoon and also telling people how cool the lagoon is so they want to protect it as well. So at my job, every day is an adventure. Some days we're catching birds that have injuries. Other days we're fishing for lionfish and removing those invasive species. Other days we're pulling crab traps out of the water and saving the animals that are stuck in there. Sometimes you end up with a pelican in your car. Sometimes you end up rescuing a manatee out of a pond. And sometimes you end up boating with a boat full of grass out to an island. So every day is different for us. And that's what I really love about my job. So if you forget everything else we talked about today, please remember these two things. The Indian River Lagoon Aquatic Preserve staff works on diverse projects to protect the Indian River Lagoon, which is an estuary we depend on. And everyone plays a role in protecting our planet. It's not just the 5 of us. We need everyone all over the world to help out by eliminating single-use plastics, properly disposing of trash, lessening your carbon footprint however you can, conserving water, following the leave no trace principles, simple things. So when you think about ways to help the earth in general, most of those things help the Indian River Lagoon as well. The most important thing is to share your knowledge with others, because you all might know more than your neighbors or your parents or your grandparents. So sharing that knowledge of how to be environmentally friendly is really, really important. And we have some advice from the team. And I can always go back to that slide and have that be the one that sits. But that's it for me. So I'll actually go back to this one so you guys can look at it for a moment. But that's it for me. That's most of what we do at the aquatic preserves. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Awesome. That was amazing. Thank you so much, Emily. It's so amazing to see the local work being done. And now you all can also make a change and also make an impact even locally. So if you want to understand more what's going on, please visit www.fosifl.org and we'll send you more information on that. So now it's time for our favorite time. It's Q&A time. So teachers, please feel free to input any questions you have. And before we get that going, because we're still waiting for some questions, I have a question for you, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to get into this field?
Great question. So I have always loved the outdoors. As a kid, I grew up watching, I was going to name the shows, but I'm guessing most high schoolers and middle schoolers won't know them anymore. But like Steve Irwin and animal shows and things like that. I was always outside with my brothers. When I was a kid, we didn't have like phone cameras. So I would take my little disposable camera and go around the neighborhood and try to take pictures of animals. But as I got older, I kind of didn't think that that was a real job. You know, that's jobs that people on TV have. That's not a real job. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Like when I was in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I almost didn't want to go to college, but I was good at school and I had a scholarship. So I figured I needed to go. And I actually took a year off since I didn't know what I wanted to do. I took a year off and got lucky enough to be able to make my way over to Hawaii and spend a year there. And that's when I really decided this is what I love to do, is to be outside and to help the different plants and animals in the ocean. So after that, I started looking for colleges in Florida that I could afford and that would work with my schedule. And I came across Broward College. And from there, I just became more and more passionate as I went along. So I didn't really know. I wasn't one of those people that from being a little kid knew exactly what I wanted to do. I kind of had to find my way there. But it worked out great.
Awesome. And you picked an amazing field to be in. You're doing some amazing work. We actually have a question from a student. And the question is, what is your favorite aquatic animal to help and why?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I am a really big habitat person. So I really like plants. So that's most of the projects I do at our office has to do with plants. I really like seagrass and I really like mangrove. But if I had to pick an animal that's my favorite to sort of rescue and work with, it would be the diamondback terrapins because they're super, super cute. I really like turtles because they're not as aggressive as some of the animals. Like catching the big birds scares me. I usually leave that to my other coworkers if I'm being honest. But those little turtles are so cute and they don't really bite that often or anything like that. So I like working with those diamondback terrapins.
Awesome. Thank you so much.